All right, so this video is going to cover Chapter 9 of Improving Vocabulary Skills. If you want to follow along in your book, you can open up to page 50, and we'll go through these words. Now let's just go ahead and read through them and listen for any clues as to parts of speech. So curtail, there's devastate, ate is the sound, digress, incentive, that IVE is a clue, incorporate, and that 8 is a clue. Indispensable, able is a clue. Intermittent, that ENT is kind of a clue, not 100%. Rigor, squander, succumb. So our first word here is curtail, and curtail is a verb. Upon hearing reports of the huge snowstorm, the principal curtailed the school day so students could go home early. I need to curtail my volunteer activities so that I can spend more time earning money to pay back a loan. So what curtail means is to shorten. And when we talk about curtailing, we're not talking about shortening as in like cutting something and making it shorter. Like if your pants are too long, you'd shorten them. But that's not what curtail means. Curtail is talking about shortening an event, something that was planned for a period of time, and making that period of time shorter. Or, like in the second example, curtail can mean to sort of cut back on doing something. So in that case, you have a lot of activities that you're doing. If you curtail them, you cut back on them. On page 51, curtail is number 2. It means to cut short or reduce. So really, it's used as talking about making cutting back on something that you're doing. So something that you're doing, either you're shortening the time that you're doing it, or you're shortening the amount that you're doing it. So some of you, and I think the majority of you work, but you may have to curtail your work so that you have enough time to do your studies. Or if you can't do that, you may have to curtail your studies, shorten the amount of time that you study so that you can do your work. Our next word is devastate, and the clue there is the 8 at the end, which tells us that it's a verb. Learning that their son had been arrested for armed robbery devastated the Huttons. They couldn't believe he'd do such a terrible thing. Vera is so fond of Andy, she'll be devastated to hear he has cancer. So what devastate means is to upset greatly. So I would say that upset is maybe not a strong enough word. Upset means like that you're a little bit angry, but devastate means that not that you're a little bit angry, but that you're completely covered by grief, or that something is very, very horrible for you. There's a noun form of this, which is devastation, which is similar to the word destruction. If like recently there was a hurricane in Haiti, and that devastated the island of Haiti, meaning that it caused a significant amount of damage. Devastate on page 51 is actually number 6, to upset deeply or to overwhelm. So when we talk about devastate meaning emotionally, it means that something happens to you that causes you a significant amount of emotional pains. So for example, the death of a parent, especially if you are young, may be devastating, or the death of your husband or your wife would be devastating, meaning this is a huge, huge loss and is emotionally very upsetting. Losing your job could also be devastating, because it may cause a lot of problems in your life because you don't have enough money. So devastate really has a serious, serious impact on you. Our next word here is digress, and this is also a verb. Professor Rubin never digresses during a lecture. Even his jokes relate to the day's topic. I tried to teach my 3-year-old niece our phone number, but we digressed to a discussion of whether Winnie the Pooh has a telephone. So digress means go off the subject. So what this means, we have the word, which you may know, of progress. Progress means to go forward. But digress means you're going forward, but you're going forward in another direction, not in the same direction that you were talking about. So for example, there are a lot of professors, and I probably fall into this too sometimes, that when they're lecturing, they digress. So they're supposed to be explaining calculus, but then they end up talking about how their son has a toothache. So you're digressing, meaning you're going off the subject. When I was in high school, and teaching in high school and also in high school, a lot of students would try to get the teacher to digress, because they didn't want to study whatever they're supposed to be studying, so they wanted the teacher to talk about something else besides the subject. Digress is number 4 on page 51. To turn aside or stray, especially from the main topic in speaking or writing. So this is actually a good point to bring up in terms of writing. You know, if you digress in your essay, it means that you go off topic. You're talking about something that is irrelevant or unrelated to the topic that you are meant to be discussing. The next word here is incentive, and this one's a noun. Now this one is a little bit tricky. So we have this IVE, and a lot of the times IVE words are adjectives, but in this case this one's a noun, so nothing's perfect. The insurance company offers an incentive, free vacation, to encourage its representatives to make more sales. The thought of myself in a bathing suit next summer provides me with adequate incentive to exercise. So it means encouragement. So in the first example, we're talking about a company offering you an incentive. And in this case, you know, really what you're talking about is the incentive is something that's bonus, something that is extra. But the purpose of the incentive is, is to make you do something. An incentive is a reward, or a promised reward, or a potential reward, meaning a future reward, that you'll get if you do something. So in the first example, if you make more sales, you get a free vacation. So that's the incentive, is pushing you to get the free vacation. In the second one, you know, when you think about yourself in a bathing suit, you know, you might want to not be like as big as you are. So in that case, that might push you to exercise more. Although I'm sure all of us are just perfect the way we are. So keep that in mind. Page 51, incentive is number 3. Something that moves one to take action or work harder, a motivation. Okay, so it's something that you're given or that you're promised that is to motivate you to work harder in order to get it. Next one here is incorporate, and this one is a verb with the 8 sound at the end. Jerry incorporated all of his favorite desserts into one, a chocolate-covered banana cream pecan pie. Ugh. Since the number of young children has gone down in my neighborhood, the 2 elementary schools have been incorporated, into one. It means to join together. Some of you guys may know the word corporation, right, which is in there. And a corporation is basically a company. And what a company is a bunch of people joined together for one specific purpose. So when you incorporate something, it means that you are joining together 2 or more things for a specific purpose. So in the first example, he's incorporating all of his favorite desserts. So chocolate, banana cream, and pecan and pie. that all of these things, he's putting these all together for the purpose of enjoying the dessert. In the second example, the two elementary schools are incorporated. They're joined together because by themselves they're not big enough. So to save money and to provide a better education, they're putting them together for a purpose. Incorporated is number 9 on page 51. To unite into a single whole, combine. Indispensable is an adjective, and that ABLE tells us that. Because there's no because there's no bus or train service nearby, a car is indispensable in my neighborhood. When you're broke, you find that many things you thought were indispensable aren't actually necessary after all. Indispensable means needed. Okay, so this is one of those tricky words because you say it has in it, that right? It starts with in, so it should be a negative. So people sometimes think like, oh, it means not needed, but it actually doesn't mean that. The word part dispense, or the word dispense, which indispensable comes from, means to actually give out something. To dispense something means to give out or to give away. So something that's indispensable is something that you can't give away. And why can't you give away? Because you need it. Without it, you're in a bad situation. So in the first example, without a car, right, if you were to give away your car, you wouldn't be able to survive, or it'd be very difficult for you to survive. On page 51, indispensable, it just says is necessary. So an indispensable thing is something that you absolutely need. You can't dispense with it. You can't give it away. The next one here is intermittent. And this one is an adjective. You have to work steadily with your dog to train him well. Intermittent practice won't work. Dora realized her weight loss on a diet would be intermittent, so she didn't give up when the losses stopped. She knew they would start again. So intermittent means irregular, and by irregular, what we mean is not not happening on a regular schedule. Not irregular in the sense of strange or weird. Irregular means that it's not a predictable pattern, or not a regular pattern of timing. So, for example, it's talking about training your dog. If you're intermittent with your practice of training the dog, it means you do it one day, and then maybe you do it the second day, but then you go a week without doing it, and then you do it one day, and then you go 2 weeks without doing it, and then you do it, and then you do it for 2 days in a row, but then after that you wait a week. So in this sense, it's irregular because it's not following a pattern. On page 51, it's number 10, starting and stopping from time to time, off and on, and so it's irregular in that sense. Our next word is rigor, and this is a noun. New Marines must go through the rigors of boot camp, such as completing an obstacle course and running several miles a day. The rigor of working at 2 part-time jobs while going to school proved too much for Jamal. Exhausted, he quit both jobs. So what is hardship? When we talk about rigor, we mean the hardship of some specific thing. So in the first example, it's the rigors of boot camp. So what boot camp is in the military. Before you're actually in the military officially, you go through a very, very difficult and hard training period. In the United States, there's also, in the start of the football season, there's the preseason, and there's something called training camp. And this is, you go through a lot of rigor. You do a lot of workout to get yourself in shape. In the second one, it's saying the rigor of working 2 part-time jobs. So it's talking about the difficulty, the hardship of working 2 part-time jobs, which I know a lot of you guys have that experience with it. To have to do that and also go to school is certainly a great hardship. On page 51, it's number 5. great hardship or difficulty, harshness, severity. Our next word is squander, and squander is a verb. It's sad to see such a wonderful artist squander her talent designing labels for baked bean cans. The company lunchroom now closes promptly at 1 o'clock, so the workers can't squander time on long lunch breaks. So squander means to misuse or to waste. Squander is usually used for, in terms of time, where you're using your time unwisely. You're wasting it. You're misusing it. We can also talk about squandering your talent. So in the first example, the artist is very talented. So the artist, she should be doing something really big or something very high level, but instead she's just working on art that goes on, like on tomato cans or something like that. On page 51, squander is number 1, to waste, to spend or use foolishly. So not to use it in the best way. So our last word here is succumb, and this one is a verb. Leah succumbed to her daughter's begging and bought her a pet lizard for her birthday. Once the suspect was arrested, he quickly succumbed and confessed to stealing the car stereo. So to yield, and what yield means is to give in. So succumb can have a couple of different usage. So succumb in the first example, she succumbed to her daughter's begging. So in this case, the daughter kept on asking, please, 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 can I get a pet lizard for my birthday? And over time, she slowly succumbed to it. So succumb can mean this slow giving into it. So for example, a lot of teenagers succumb to peer pressure. So take using drugs or drinking. Their parents may tell them you shouldn't drink or you shouldn't do drugs, right? And it's a rule in the house. But their friends are like, here, just try this. And they say no at first. Here, just try this. And then they say no again. Here, just try this. And this goes on and on and on. And over time, they succumb, they give in, right? They give in to the temptation of something. So that's one meaning of succumb, is like this sort of slow, over time giving in to some repeated request for you to change. But in the second example, right? Well, I guess the second example is sort of the same, except instead of slowly succumbing, he's quickly succumbing. So the police didn't have to ask him again and again and again and again and again, did you steal the car stereo? He quickly succumbed. So on page 51, succumb means to give in or to stop resisting. So that's another way to look at it. All right, great. So go ahead and do the questions for this chapter, and we will discuss it in class. Take care. Bye.